Hey YouTube, my name is Shane. If you know me from Twitter, then you probably know me as @ArtemisNYC. Shout out to all my Twitter people. And I've been thinking about making a kind of witchtastic, queer, whatever, YouTube channel for quite a while, probably at least a couple years, and a few things always stopped me. The first was when I had first started really thinking about it in earnest. It was around the time my partner and I were founding our coven. And you'll meet him at some point. He's fabulous and I adore him. We have really great conversations. The way we bounce off of each other, I think, is really entertaining and insightful. So he'll be here at some point and we'll just vibe off of each other and keep it going. But we were putting our coven together around the same time, and we thought it would be absolutely ridiculous to try to get both things off of the ground simultaneously. So in our wisdom, we prioritized our coven, obviously, here in Queens, New York. And now it's been a few years, and, I've got some stuff to say. And then the second reason that I had been kind of putting it off is I really find myself a lot of times, I'm sure many of you can relate, crippled by perfectionism. Typical Virgo that I am. For many years I let it stop me that, I've never done anything like this before, and I don't know how, I'm not very technologically savvy, and I don't know how to edit videos, and I don't know how to get any of those cool effects, or, I was worried that the videos wouldn't look like super professional or whatever. And I just chose to get over that. I had posted a question late last night on Twitter. I was like, if I start a Twitter channel, would anybody be even halfway interested in listening to my kind of, crazy ramblings and half-baked magical theories and queer shit and whatever else I talk about? And the response was swift and very positive. So, I was like, oh, they like me. But it was very flattering and very encouraging. And I thank everybody that reached out and responded, was like, yes, do it. It feels really good. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? If I wait until I'm, super proficient in how these things work and until I look like a supermodel, until I, have a nice apartment that would look like a beautiful backdrop, I'll be waiting forever. You never, and similarly, you don't find the time to do things like this. You have to make the time to do things like this or they never get done. But yeah, so I've had a habit in the past of kind of being crippled by that perfectionism, and I just decided, I'm going to let it go. So actually, the first page on my Book of Shadows is a purposefully ugly scrawled, do not be crippled by perfectionism, based on a conversation that I had with my upline high priest. Because we were talking about, and again, I'm sure many of you can relate, how many of you do have just scores and scores of beautiful blank notebooks at home, and you're like, oh no, it's so gorgeous, if I write on it, I'm gonna ruin it. And you have no idea what you could possibly put into this blank book that's going to be so gorgeous and so worthy. And so, you never use it, and it just sits in a drawer or on a shelf. And then you buy yet another blank book that you don't need and you're never going to fill. So I was having that conversation with my upline coven many, many years ago. And because we were talking about, hand copying the Book of Shadows and all that. And I was like, what if I mess it up? Again, being crippled by that perfectionism. So, I decided to get over that, and then I said, well, what the hell am I going to make my first video about? What would anyone even be interested in hearing about? I don't have anything prepared. But it occurred to me there are 2 weeks left to this wonderful year, 2019, and I had started reflecting on all the things I learned this year, all the things I did this year. At the end of the year, I usually kind of write an essay about the things I've learned and the new experiences I've had and the things I've tried. and I put it all together and usually post it to Facebook to a filter of close friends and people that I trust, because some of it's deeply personal. And so I started gathering my notes and looking at my photos for the year and, kind of reminiscing on those fond memories. And I was like, you know what, if nothing else, with 2 weeks left to 2019, I can talk about my 2019 Witchy year in review and kind of all the things that we accomplished, me personally as a witch and with my coven. So without further ado, in 2019, I celebrated 2 years with my coven. That would be in June. We hit the 2-year mark officially. So I'm a Gardnerian, and in our tradition, you count the age of a coven by when you have your first initiate. So our first initiate turned 2 years old in June. My partner and I had an outer court training system for a full year before that. So it's unofficially 3 years, officially 2 years. The coven is and remains one of the most challenging and rewarding things I have ever done with my life. I wouldn't change a thing. It brings me such immense meaning and joy and frustration at times, and just all of it. They really are my family of choice. They're my magical family. I have zero regrets. Coven life is amazing. But yeah, 2 years this June. And I can't believe it. Sometimes it feels like I've been doing this for my whole entire life. Sometimes it feels like I've been doing this for about 6 minutes. So it's great. It is great. We also, in 2019, we initiated 2 more members into the coven, or as I like to say, we inflicted 2 more witches upon the world. 2 amazing young men, one in January and one in May. So that is awesome. They're a lovely addition to our little family. I attended 3 Wiccan festivals this year, I guess you could call them. I tend to not go to the big festivals. I'm hoping to change that in the next couple of years. I've never been to PantheaCon or Convocation or, like I said, any of the big name festivals. I tend to favor the smaller, more intimate gatherings. So I go to a lot of trips and festivals that are, if not Gardnerian only, then invite only for sure. So it's only open to like vetted, people we all know and trust. And it's not out of any kind of tradition snobbery, or maybe it is, I don't know. But it's mostly because I really look at those trips as a way, to really deep dive and, get to know some of these people better and get really intimate and get really personal and, get really, life-changing rituals out of that. And so I went to 3 of those this year. They were amazing. They were all amazing. At one of them, my partner and I and some of the representatives from our coven and a neighboring coven that we adore and have a really special relationship with, led a large public Samhain ritual. So for about, I think about 50, 60, 60-ish people were in attendance. So my partner and I were the high priest and high priestess for this, the main ritual of that festival. And it was nerve-wracking and anxiety-inducing and really, really, really wonderful. Crazy. If you would have told me a year ago that I would have been doing this, I would have laughed in your face. But it was a great experience. I'm happy that I did it. That's a huge accomplishment for me. So that was at one of the festivals, and at the other 2, I facilitated a workshop about coven leadership. Leadership is something that I'm extraordinarily passionate about, whether in a coven setting or in a professional setting. In my workaday world, I'm in management and I do a lot of people managing and a lot of things of that nature. So It's kind of really bizarre the way that those two worlds kind of intersect, and there's a lot of like Venn diagram stuff happening there. But yeah, I'm passionate about leadership. Good leadership really, makes a difference. And if a group or an organization or, is going to be successful or fail, bad leadership makes me angrier than almost anything else on earth. So when I lead and design workshops and facilitate workshops at events like this, I tend to focus on like mediating a dispute between two parties, or how to have a difficult conversation with someone and hold them accountable, or how do you know someone is ready to be initiated or elevated. So things that have to do with coven management, coven facilitation, coven leadership. So I previewed my workshop over the summer, and then it went really well, and I was asked to do it again in the fall. So I was very, very pleased, to be of service to my community and to be able to do that workshop twice. What else? What else for my witchy year in 2019? So my coven and I we have a tradition that in the spring, for spring equinox, we all choose a personal project. Can literally be anything. Could be learning a new language. It could be setting a personal boundary. It could be, learning to cook. Whatever it might be. The idea being you have an entire year to work on this project from spring equinox to spring equinox. And it's completely up to you how you do it. No one is holding you accountable. No one's wagging their finger at you saying, oh, you're not putting in any work. It's up to you how you reap those rewards, right? Personal accountability. We're all adults. We initiate adults, as we like to say. So some people take the full year to do it. Some people like to structure it so that, they hit the gas in the spring. They want to have their project kind of completed by the fall equinox to kind of have that, those kind of bookends of the year. And then they take the next 6 months to kind of internalize the lesson, to reinforce the behavior, to kind of meditate on it, and then to decide what their project is going to be in the following year, and maintain the change. So my project for 2019 was actually inspired by my therapist, who, which we'll talk about in a minute. But one of the things that he always begins his sessions with me by asking is, in the last week, how was your sleep, nutrition, and exercise? And the first couple of weeks I started going to therapy in early February of this year, I really resented those questions because I was like, listen, dude, like, we're here to talk about the fact that I'm depressed, not the fact that I'm fat. Why are you asking about my sleep and nutrition and exercise? And so for the first several weeks, I really resisted doing anything about that because I didn't think I should be asked about that at all. And who was this guy anyway? And, I wasn't, honoring the process. I was really resistant to the process in the beginning, and I admit that freely. Eventually, because he wouldn't let up with this, I started doing things about my sleep or nutrition or exercise, slowly and gradually, just so I would have something to tell this guy on Wednesdays, because I'm like, oh, he's going to ask, and I don't want to say, no changes again for the 12th week in a row. So I started doing it. And to my incredible surprise, it started to have a real, genuine, positive impact on my mental health. Didn't solve all my problems, of course, but it really started to, to have an impact. So I decided to make that my project come the spring. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm feeling better by working on these things. Even if I still need therapy, even if I need medication, even if I need whatever else down the road, at least I have now built a solid foundation on which to, layer on those other tools. So for this year, I made my witchy project, prioritizing my sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Which isn't to say that it was great all the time, or that I was super consistent, or that, sometimes I focused on one and let one or two of the others lapse. But as a whole, I'm in a much better place today in December than I was, at the beginning of the year. So I definitely count that a win. that's really it for my witchtastic accomplishments. I mean, I did start this YouTube channel. So, and I would love to keep that going into 2020 and, you know, keep the coven going, and you know, we'll see where the next year takes us. I had some non-witchcraft related accomplishments in 2019 as well. Again, I started therapy in February. I started dating again after the dissolution of my marriage last year. So I started dating again at the beginning of the year. That was pretty monumental. I made more art this year than I have any other year of my life, probably. So I think that's amazing. I have been making some discoveries about my gender identity and expression, and have been presenting a little bit more true to who I am, and less in line with how I felt kind of societally pressured to present, which could be a whole video unto itself, and probably will be. We'll get there. I started medication to manage my depression and anxiety a little bit better 2 months ago, so it took me a long time to come to that decision, and honestly, I'm proud of it, you know, because fuck stigma, right? I was a group leader for World Pride, the 50th anniversary of Stonewall in June for the New York City Pride Parade. I marched with my corporation, and so like I said, I was a group leader. I was in charge of about 50 people, you know, make sure we stepped off on time and kept the group together. And that was an amazing experience, you know, just to be part of that, and to say, like, you know, I served as a volunteer, and I served my community. I did my part. So that was a pretty cool thing to be a part of. Like I said, none of those things are necessarily craft related, but they are kind of a big piece of who I am as a person. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed getting to know me better, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll have another one up soon. But again, thank you for all the encouragement. This has been awesome, and have a great day, guys.